Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Another great episode is on its way. LMTV, sponsored by Love My Tool. Today we have Paul Offord, who's going to continue with his LMTV TribeLab, a collaboration between Love My Tool and TribeLab0.com. Before I introduce Paul, who basically needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce my panel member, Tony Fortunato. Hi, Tony. Good morning.
Hello, 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 Denny. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good that you can come on the show. And Tim, good afternoon.
Good morning or
Good
afternoon,
morning. Yeah,
whatever it is.
we're confused. You're in the basement. What do you care?
Yeah, somewhere, it's sometime, somewhere.
Uh-huh, uh-huh. So, Paul, did I interpret the name of your site correctly? Tribal.com, TribeLab.com, kind of related to tribal knowledge. Is that
No,
kind of the?
it's TribeLab, and
I
I'll tell you
understand that. Yeah, yeah. You
okay,
need
I'll
you need
tell
to
you where.
explain it because if you don't explain it, then I'm gonna be.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
explain it.
yeah.
So, I don't know if you know a writer called Seth Godin. He writes a lot on marketing. He actually wrote a book called Tribes, uh, which is basically. God, I hope he's not. I hope he never watches this because I'm bound to get this wrong. But what he basically is saying in the book is that a good way to market is to build a following, which he calls a tribe, and he suggests ways of actually building your tribe. And basically, the tribe is a group of people who believe what you believe, so they follow. And not just follow, I guess they also there's a certain amount of synergy and generation of ideas and things within the tribe. So that's where the tribe part comes from, and a lab is just because, well, a lab is an experiment, and this is an experiment, so we chose TribeLab.
Hmm. Okay. Okay, that makes sense, I guess. I need to read more.
He writes some really good stuff. I like him, but I think he might be what we call a Marmite type person. Marmite is a spread that you put on bread in the UK, and you either love it or you hate it. Some people absolutely hate Marmite, and some people love it. And I think
Hmm.
Seth Godin might be a bit like that.
Okay. Okay. Well, you have some really interesting material ready for us.
I
Why
hope
don't you
so.
pick that? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So just let me get my screen share started here.
You know he's getting serious. He put his glasses on.
Yeah. I can't see a thing if I don't. That's why.
Tony, take notes starting now.
Okay. So um, I'm going to talk about the rationale for cross-technology troubleshooting. So just to check, I hope you can see the title
Yes.
slide.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay, good. Um, so cross-technology troubleshooting pretty much does what it says on the tin, which is we're troubleshooting problems across a number of technologies from one end of a system to the other. So this is becoming more important. From our perspective, we can see this becoming more important within the IT industry as there are more sophisticated applications coming along, and a lot of integration and interconnection and outsourcing is also driving some of the concerns around this area. So I'm going to cover this area. Um, conventional support arrangements are we have some sort of service operation function like service desk. A problem comes into the service desk, and typically it's quite obvious which technology is causing the issue, and so we pass it out to the correct technology team. And I've spoken about this on many occasions, but that's really a quite straightforward way of dealing with the problems. And within each of those technology towers, we have second and third line support people. So that's all good, but we might get the situation where we pass a problem to the application support people and they struggle, so it gradually gets escalated through second and third line support and lots of dialogue with suppliers, etc. But if that doesn't work, then we might have to we have to do the same in networks, and we might have to do the same in web. Wherever these problems get allocated, they may need to be escalated. And even that all works okay until you get a problem where you're not quite sure which technology is causing the issue. And so we get a problem, and the service desk or incident management or whoever do their best to allocate the problem to the correct team. That team struggles to find the cause of the problem, so they escalate the problem within their technology tower and reach the end of the line and say, well, it's not us, it must be something else. So the problem passes on to the next team, they escalate, and so it goes on from one team to the other as each escalates in and out of their, up through their technology tower and through their support structure. Now, the trouble with this approach is that it's very slow. And what makes it worse is you may get to the end where you still don't know which technology is causing the problem. Everybody has taken a look at it, they say it's not their problem, and so then we're into a rather difficult situation. So the possible escalations past that point, or the possible responses to that situation, the first one is we get a handsome young man to come in, and we just start making changes. And I've seen lots of organisations that just try and change their way out of a problem without really understanding what the root cause is, but they've got to such a desperate situation that they just try things. Now, some of it is driven by experience, but the trouble is that there's not much rigour in testing the scenario that was experienced against the current scenario. So someone just says, well, I've seen something like this before and we fixed it by making this change. Some of it's driven by suppliers suggesting things like software upgrades and other things. Some of it is just driven by gut feel. So that's one possible response. The next one is perform a health check. And the trouble with this type of response is that you can go to every one of the technology towers, you can say to them, prove to us that your technology is not causing the problem, and they go away for a month or so and do some grand health check. They come back to you with a nice glossy report showing you that it's quite obvious that their technology is not to blame. The trouble is they all come back with that report. So you're still stuck, and the final resting place for these types of problems is some of them just get parked and they just never get dealt with. So I've been to customers where they have literally hundreds of problems in their problem database, which are really just there because nobody can figure out how to deal with them, and they've given up. Now, if it's a major incident type problem and it's having a really hefty impact, then it's difficult to put them on the too difficult to deal with heap. But a lot of these are just annoying performance and stability issues. But the trouble is that by not dealing with them, it really upsets the users, because the users get sick of having to deal with the same issue over and over again. And the other thing is that those are the issues that sometimes then tip into major incidents as the work pattern changes. So the next area is problem management. Now, some organisations have a problem management team designed along the lines of ITIL or COBIT, and really the problem management team should take a leading role in the investigation of these types of problems. I've participated in the problem management community. I tried to push this whole idea that they need to get more engaged with these types of problems for about 5 years, and it was very frustrating for a whole bunch of reasons. Not all the fault of the problem management community, but some of it is just that they just don't seem to get involved in dealing with these recurring type of problems that really they should be right at the forefront of this. So the other issue, one of the issues they do have if they do get involved, is they still have to rely on the technical staff from each of these technology towers. Now these techies have no end-to-end remit. They're solely responsible for the technology within their own team. And the trouble is that then when you get them into a room and you start to try and get them to discuss a problem, there's a lot of focus on defending their own technology. So it tends to be around, discussions are around, well, we've already proven that it's not us, or we've already done a health check and we've found quite clearly that it's not our technology, rather than thinking about how are we actually going to find the root cause of this problem. So it's just a different mindset. So these are some of the problems that are facing customers right now, and we are talking to I've been talking to more and more people. Even in the last 2 weeks, I think I've spoken to 4 different organizations that have recognized this as an issue and want to talk about how to deal with it. And I just think that this is the time has come now for us to look at different ways of approaching these sorts of issues. It's not that we don't need these technology towers, don't get me wrong, we do need them, but we need something else as well. So for me, the something else is this cross-technology team concept. So if we look at something like ITIL took some certain IT functions and pivoted them from being vertical functions through the technology. So for example, release management is a good one, and made them a horizontal function. So release management covers end-to-end management of the release of all the components in the end-to-end system. And the thing that we lack is a technology team that has an end-to-end remit. And that's really where the cross-technology team comes in. So these are technical people who will we'll come on to methods and tools and things later, but their approach is to look at the problem on an end-to-end basis. So in doing this, when they get a grey problem and the service desk recognise the fact that they can't figure out which group to hand this over to, or maybe they've already tried but the problems come bouncing back to them, then that's when they're going to engage with the cross-technology team. And this team will communicate with all the different teams, but this is a much lighter approach. So whereas before, when we had a problem that was passing from team to team, we usually end up with 6 to 8 people on a conference call, 1 hour every day for about 5 weeks, discussing what they're going to do about it and making changes and monitoring the changes and burning up loads of time. What I'm talking about here is perhaps a 90-minute meeting to decide what's got to be done, and then the cross-technology team going away and executing the plan. So to do that, what they do is they'll create a plan to capture data, analyze the data, and prove which technology is causing the problem. And that enables the accurate allocation of the problem. So you can see here that you're cutting out loads of time. All these people in these different towers who would normally be sitting on conference calls thinking, what on earth am I doing on this call? It's got nothing to do with our technology. That's no longer needed. Okay, so there are some myths around this type of approach. The first thing, and this keeps coming up over and over again, is that the claim is that the cross-technology team are just better engineers than the people in third-line support, and we're just going to collect together the great and the good. It's not true. It's a different skill set. You might want senior people from those third-line support teams. That obviously is a benefit, but that's not the most important aspect of it. I'll talk a bit further about the types of people you need, but I can illustrate this quite clearly. Advanced 7 has a group of I work with a group of clever people. They've got a range of skills, but if I could ask any one of them to go and troubleshoot, say, an Active Directory problem, a Windows Active Directory problem, and they would know how to do it and what they needed to do, and they would know the steps. But if you went to that same person and said to them, design me an Active Directory structure, they would say, well, I don't really know where to start. I've got no experience of doing it. I could probably do a load of research, but it would take me quite a while. So it's just a different skill set. You take a different approach when you're troubleshooting problems if you're doing it in an evidence-based way as opposed to in an experience or knowledge-based way. So there is a very different approach here. The next myth is you don't need these people because a good problem management team can do it. Well, that's not true, because ultimately they will rely on the third line people to actually find the cause, and because they won't have a structured way of driving the third line people, then you just end up with a sort of finger pointing exercise, and again, people defending their technology. And the third myth is that, okay, well, I can build a part-time team with senior people, and I'll just give them a role in various projects so that they can do other things at other times. Now, this sounds good in principle, and I have seen people try it, but unfortunately what happens is that there always arises the problem of prioritization. So what happens is that a problem arises, whoever's coordinating the cross-technology team goes to the engineer and says, okay, can you come and join us because we need to investigate a problem. That engineer says to his manager, I need to go off and do this investigation, and the manager says, there's no way because we're up against it with the delivery of this project. I don't want you spending time doing something else. And so there's always this contention, and it just doesn't seem to work. As I say, I've seen people try it, but it just doesn't seem to work. So in terms of what the cross-technology team needs, well, you need people, obviously. The people you need are people who, the most important part is they've got to be open-minded and be prepared to be pushed outside of their own core knowledge. You just need clear thinkers that are quite prepared to look at a thing on an end-to-end basis and take a quite straightforward, methodical approach to investigation. What you don't need is a person who is really dogmatic about them thinking, I know all the answers from my own experience, therefore all we need to do is you need to tell me what the issue is, I'll tap into my own knowledge base and I'll tell you what the answer is. A great example of this is that I taught a course on troubleshooting, end-to-end troubleshooting techniques, and on the course we had lots of technical people and the Advanced 7 marketing director, and she worked with 2 technical people, and when it came to an exercise of devising a plan to capture data for a particular symptom, they got together in a breakout group, and the 2 techie guys, all they kept talking about is, I bet it's this and I bet it's that, I know what it is, I've seen this before. And she said, look, shouldn't we just be coming up with a diagnostic plan? And they said, no, we know, we've seen this before, it's quite obvious, it's this. So it's that sort of person that you really don't need. You need someone who's going to take a more open-minded view of this. They've got to have the remit to look at the problem on an end-to-end basis. So, for example, if I'm a member of a team and I want to go and get the web logs for a web server, and I go and see the web engineers and they say, well, we haven't got time to get the web logs for you, and anyway, what's it got to do with you? This isn't a web problem. You need the authority to be able to actually ask for the sort of data that you need, and that's got to come with some teeth. So if you get pushback from someone, you need someone senior to be able to slap them down and say, no, you will provide this data because this team needs it and this is the way they work. I have to be a bit careful about what I say here. I went to a customer and we needed some network information from the network team. And I was working with an application guy. And we went off to the network team, and you wouldn't believe how rude the people were there to us. It was unbelievable. And not to me, because I was an outsider and I think they were feeling a bit threatened, but the way they treated their colleague, I just couldn't believe it. And they felt that they didn't know why he was asking them for network information when he came from the application team. So I'm sometimes dumbstruck by the attitude of people. It's just unbelievable. Okay, moving on to lighter things. Tools are certainly helpful, but a lot of the tools that you need, you probably already have in the environment. And we all know and love Wireshark, and you can do so much with something like Wireshark and Excel. But there are obviously new tools coming along. There's APM and there's NPMD type tools. The tools alone won't do it, despite the hype that you're going to get from those tool providers, because they're all and I sell these tools, by the way, now, so I'm mixed in with this lot. But a lot of the unscrupulous providers will tell you that the tools will do it all, and you don't need to know anything, which is ridiculous. So you still need the people, you still need the skills. And most importantly, you need a common way of working. So the cross-technology team has got to work in a methodical way. You've all got to work in the same way. So this is one of the problems with having part-time members of this team. If you have some members who join the team, they've got their own preferred way of diagnosing problems, they've got their own tool sets, and the trouble is then they all end up with different answers, and so you then get arguments within the team. You need a common approach to this. So you can achieve a lot with a team like this, and I've got several customers who have got these teams, and really they really churn through solving problems very quickly, and problems that I've seen other customers struggle with for months, if not years. So that's it. Hopefully that's given you a flavour, and if I can figure out how to get my screen share off, like that.
You didn't have your glasses on, no.
Yeah.
Your screen glasses on.
You know, it's amazing to me that I can remember back when the first Datascope was back in the 70s, and the same problem we had. It was, 18 different fingers pointing different ways, and of course back then IBM and those people pretty much owned that arena, and they would come in with their suits and their 20 guys, and
I was one of them.
Yeah, and I was too. SNA and SDLC was my world. I went to the third class they ever gave on that. But it's always seemed to be the same problem. When there's a problem, it's everybody else's fault. And it's still today. Every time I get involved in one, or I hear Tony say the same thing, or Tom Tosh, everyone says the first thing you've got to do is get everybody to quit pointing fingers and work together to find out where the root cause really is.
Yeah.
Because there's so many things that can happen as the stack goes up, the applications get deeper and broader.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's helping the hackers. There doesn't seem to be a single point of focus for security in companies. It's kind of like I'm the CISO, but everybody else is trying to protect their own little niche and not working and collaborating together to protect the whole company.
Yeah, well, I think the thing is, in defense of the technology teams, typically they're overloaded with work, and there is a lot of frustration for them when they're sitting. Like, I come back to this conference call, because this conference call thing seems to be the thing that people keep telling me about. they sit on endless conference calls talking about things that they really don't think they should be involved in, but they get dragged into everything, and it's just burning up their time. You know, you only need a few of those, and I often sit on conference calls with at least 8 people on the call. Well, if you've got 8 people for 1 hour every day, you're losing a man, and people aren't running with enough slack to be able to do that. So I think it comes down to this. You need the ability to accurately allocate problems, and you can't do that just with conventional methods. You know, you can now use tools. I'm sure Tony does this all the time, but you know, we're using trace analysis tools to find, is it a web server problem, is it a PC problem, is it a problem in the network. That's so powerful, but it's not very common. I mean, I've got lots of customers that have got an incredible investment in Riverbed Net Sharks and Infinistreams and Nixons and all these big capture units. And when you actually say to them, well, can we use them to actually investigate this problem? Well, no, none. Well, we'd have trouble finding someone who can drive them. That's the first problem. And the second problem is, well, no, they're not really for that. They're for the network team. Well, what the heck are you doing with them then? Because if all you're doing is fixing network problems, then truly you have wasted a big bundle of cash, because you don't need an Infinistream to fix nearly every underlying network problem that you're likely to experience. You'd be better off with something that looked at network flows.
Oh, Paul, it's the same thing with banks.
Capture.
Yeah, it's the same thing with banks. They put in a huge door for a vault, but the walls around it are just plaster. You know, it's like, I got to have that big steel door to make people feel comfortable. And I think if people really used Infinistream or, you know, all these other tools out there, it would help a lot more understand the complexities of their network, but they just don't. It seems to be like, I remember back at Network General when people got their sniffer training, they had a badge they wore, or a pin that said, you know, I'm a sniffer expert. And it was like a badge of courage. That didn't mean they could solve a problem. It meant they knew how to use a unit.
Yeah.
But this is, it's like, and one of the common problems we see today is the BYOD or misusage or stupid usage of company resources. You know, and it's getting to be, I was reading an article the other day that they need, just in the U.S., we need about 500,000 security people, network security people. And I kind of chuckled to myself, what we really need are people that understand how to protect a network, how to troubleshoot a network, because they go hand in hand, you know.
Come on, Tony, pitch in. You must have a view on this.
Come on, Tony.
Yeah, Tony, how much of your time is just to get
Oh,
people
no.
talking?
Take that, buddy. I got notes. I'm gonna start with the most important point of all, Paul. I'm expecting that royalty check for my photo.
I noticed that. I started to mention it. I noticed the little holes in it. I think they've been using this for his dartboard.
Or you can send some gold bars straight to my wife.
Okay.
The second thing is the actually related to the presentation. That was very good, by the way. That was well done.
Thank you.
I didn't quite catch that cross-technology team. Is there somebody, like a person, responsible? Otherwise, these guys will run, rampant, doing all sorts of crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, it's a good question. Who do they report to? They tend to report to. I wish they reported to problem management or a service operations function, but I tell you, they never do. They tend to report to, say, the head of infrastructure, or in fact, all the ones I can think of, they all report to the head of infrastructure or some role like that. So it's quite a senior management role, someone who sits above all the technology teams. You need someone like that because he's the guy who's going to have to give them the authority and the remit to do it. The problem with service operations teams is all the power, actually, I was talking to somebody about this the other day, all the power is still held with the technology teams because they're the people who have got the budgets. They've got massive budgets, and the service operations people have got piffling budgets, and so that's where the power goes with the budget.
Right.
And so if you want to construct one of these teams, you've got to go and approach the technology people because the problem management people just can't afford it.
Right. Okay, that's cool. The second one that I had is actually quite interesting. You talked about the, I call it the blame game, where everybody just keeps pointing their fingers at one another. You personally, I'm kind of curious, just on a personal note, when you walk into those scenarios, what do you do other than pull your hair and start screaming at people?
Okay, so our sort of workflow, if you like, is we start off, we meet with someone who's been investigating the problem just to get some background to the problem, so that we get a full understanding of the symptoms and the end-to-end environment. Ultimately, what we do is we then go into a meeting with members of the different technology towers, and we tell them that we have a structured approach to investigating the problem, and we give them a brief outline of the approach. That's when we get challenged. So at that point, there'll always be someone in that meeting, very credible, very strong-minded, clever guy, who'll say, I don't know why you're doing all this. It's quite obviously the database. It's always the database. And so, yeah, we do have to then fight our corner. So you have to say, well, I don't have the luxury. Maybe it's easier for us coming in from outside, but I'll just say to them, I don't have the luxury of reaching that sort of conclusion without proof. I've been asked to deliver proof, so unfortunately we've got to go this way. Now, I have had tussles in the past, and I've had people arguing in a meeting about what is and is not causing the problem. It's not. Maybe it's just the customers I go to because they've already got to the point where they've accepted they need someone from outside, but I don't get it too much these days, I must say. Usually they're just totally exhausted by the whole thing. They've been battling away with it for weeks, and yeah.
And I guess my last point is you mentioned the rude technology people. And I don't run into that issue anymore. And if you need some names and numbers of some of my relatives who can pay them a visit, then that'll sort that out very quickly. Thought I'd throw that in, just an offer for you.
Tony, you told me you were going to keep that on the dark web. You told me we're going to do that out here in the light.
Hey, listen, they take Bitcoin now, man.
Okay, thanks for that. Yeah, it's quite weird the way it's good. I like the way that the APM thing is progressing. I think that certainly my experience with Riverbed is they're listening a lot more to what's needed. I attended an APM conference in the early 2000s, and some of the claims that were being made at that event were just absolutely outrageous. Yeah, so there's a lot of hype around, and you still have to dig into the detail of how the thing works to understand exactly what the shortcomings are. So it's still a bit of a just buyer beware. That's what
I keep telling people APM solutions are just like any other tool. You can grab a bag of nails, you can grab a bunch of hammers, but everybody's going to frame a house differently, and half of them are probably going to fall down, right?
Yeah,
so it's just another tool. That's all it is.
Yeah, that's true. The trouble is that because a lot of the marketing claims are, oh look, this icon's gone red. Now I can click on that. Oh look, that transaction's gone slow. Then I can click on that and I can find method calls, or I can find data flows or whatever. But the trouble is that there's still not a lot of people are thinking about correlating those things to real user examples of problems. And so you tend to go off and chase some problem that actually nobody's bothered about, and it's not the problem you're supposed to be looking at. So, yes, you still need skills. You still need to understand what the tools are telling you. You definitely need to be able to spot false alarms, which still, obviously will occur. Sorry, Denny, you cut in there.
Well, I just want to, before we close, I just want to ask Paul a question. you wear multiple hats. You run Event 7, and then you also started this TribeLab with your colleagues. And I mentioned at the top of the show that this is a collaboration between LMTV and TribeLab. So I just want to ask you a question. Are we helping your cause?
The more the word gets out there, the better it is. We have seen, I think we got, after the last TribeLab event, it looks as though we've got about 15 more registered users on the learning platform of TribeLab, which is a good way of measuring just how much interest there is.
Mm-hmm.
So it is having an effect, and my colleague is currently massaging the stuff I did on Process Monitor, and they're going to put that onto the learning platform together with some sample files and some exercises and things. So they're doing that, and I'm working on a TCP/IP course.
Yeah. So this is the second episode of the LMTV TribeLab, and just as it turns out, it was a month apart. So I'm assuming that we're going to continue, and then the next one will be in the early part of April. I think now is a good time for you to kind of outline the content that you have in mind in the next 2, 3, 4 episodes, just for our viewers.
Yeah. So I'm conscious of the fact that the last 2 have been very much around the philosophy. So the first one was, why did we need RPR, and why do we take that approach? And this one has been around, how might that all fit into the corporate environment, which is very much the cross-technology issue. I think the next 2 or 3, I'd like to take our viewers for a tour around TribeLab, probably the next one, and show them what we've got in place and what we're looking to add. I'm going to try and I want to engage with some other people. One of them happens to be on our panel here today. I want him to contribute as well. And I'm going to talk to him about that offline. I want to make this clear that TribeLab is a project that we initiated, but I am really keen for as many people to get involved as we can get involved, because as I said in the last show we did, this is an industry issue. This isn't just an Advanced 7 issue or an Advanced 7 customer issue. This is an industry issue, and we need to push on with it and look at new ways of working.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. So we look forward to being part of that. I think that I said this before, that as an entrepreneur, the metric for success is that if you have more people who care about your success than they care about your demise, that's a good thing, right?
That's a good way to look at it. Yeah.
Okay, so I think with that, I'm going to close the show. Otherwise, we'll go over the 40-minute mark. Any last comment, Tim?
Yeah, I was going to say, just go ahead and say Tony, and then because forgiveness is always easier to obtain than permission.
That's always the trick. Get them to commit on camera.
On camera. Don't even.
Yeah, don't even give them any leeway. Yeah. No. Okay, Tony, in your defense.
He has none.
Yeah.
I have none.
Any last word?
No, I'm good. Thanks. Well done again, Paul.
Okay, and then so we will see you tomorrow, Tony.
Yep, sure will.
Yeah, so tomorrow we'll do another episode of the LMTV WTF and continue with the baselining theme. Thanks again, Paul. Hope to see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll try and make it tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
Be good, gang. Have a great day, everybody, and be safe.
Okay, thanks, Tony.
Yep.
Bye-bye.